Hi everyone, welcome back to another video, or welcome here if you are new. My name's Charlotte, and at the start of the year I set out a goal to buy less stuff in 2026. Now, I've done no buys previously in the past, and this one's a little bit different. We're going with a softer approach in order to live more intentionally when it comes to the money spent and what it's spent on. If we talk about money, first of all, money, I don't think we can avoid, is a valuable resource for all of us in modern life. We need money to survive. There's no getting around that. And the way our society works is that you have to exchange something in order to get that money. And for a lot of us working traditional jobs, that is simply our time, alongside other things like our skills and knowledge and experiences. But the main thing there being time. And I've very much come into the realization that I don't want to exchange my time forever in order to just have my basic needs met. And so if I am going to be exchanging my time for money, then that money has just increased tenfold in its value to me and what I use it on. Because of that, I do have a savings goal for 2026 that is bigger than any savings goal I've had before, simply to ensure that I'm putting that hard-earned money away so that it will pay me essentially in the future, so that I don't have to exchange my time for money for the rest of my life. And at some point a time will come where I can step back a little bit. Aside from that, I've also been reflecting on what is enough, and that stems from money. It also stems from an environment. Many people set out with the goal of earning more in order to have more and to have what they would label a better quality of life. Now, we might not all agree on what a better quality of life is, but for me, I'm starting to realize more what I would consider enough, and I don't necessarily want to increase my lifestyle any more than it is. I'm happy in what I've got, and in fact I'm looking to scale back and have less and live slowly and more intentionally. And what that means in terms of physical things is making my space calmer, making my space peaceful, making my space less cluttered and therefore less stressful. And so for me, that does mean going against that urge to buy things all the time in order to maintain that peace. So if I share first of all a few of the things that in January I didn't buy, I think that will give us a little bit of an idea. One area for me that I don't think I'll ever be fully satisfied with is my wardrobe. My mind is constantly changing with regards to that, and that is because style is something I'm inspired by, and I see things and I want to change things slightly, and I am a little bit, admittedly, fickle with it, and I am very much in the mindset of I want a timeless wardrobe, and I want the pieces in my wardrobe to be of high quality and last really well, that I could wear them for years and years and years. And whilst I think for the most part I have a good idea on my own personal style, there are ideas that change that. So I did say to myself that this month, even when those sparks arose, really I would just put them in the back of my mind somewhere, not gone forever. It's not about a heavy restriction, but just almost to give myself a break from it, give myself permission to not overthink the wardrobe, just work with what we've got. And so I didn't buy any main wardrobe clothes this month. I also ran out of my bronzer and I did not have a replacement, so I've just been making do with the brown shades in an old eyeshadow palette to work as bronzer, which is actually something I've been doing for blush and highlight for many years now in order to try and use those up. So I'm just going to continue down that road for a while, unless it does become really problematic, that it's more of a problem than a solution. But I did need a new bronzer throughout most of January. That's not an expensive product for me to replace either, because I don't buy expensive high-end makeup. But I just thought, let's see how we can go for the rest of this month, and for the most part it's been okay. A big one that I didn't commit to was booking in another trip. I already have a couple of trips booked in for the spring, most just overnight stays in this country, and then one bigger trip that has already been paid for prior to starting this year. But I was invited on another trip with a friend, and ordinarily it's just the sort of thing that I'd say yes to have an experience, to go out there and do something different, as well as be that person that, you know, jumps and goes on trips with friends and doesn't let people down. But when I heard the details of the trip, none of it really spoke to me, none of it excited me. And in the past, that wouldn't necessarily stop me going. I'd probably go along and try to make the best of it. But I'd also planned that period of time off work that me and this friend both have at the same time, because we both work in the same industry, just to have that time to stop and be at home and rest. Tom and I haven't booked anything in to do at that time, specifically because we wanted that time to rest. Knowing we've got these other sort of few trips going on, we wanted to take a break, and we also wanted to save a bit of money. And for me, I think that is a little bit of personal growth, and it was something I really worried about. I wondered how this friend would react, and I should have known better. She was amazing about it, and she totally understood where I was coming from, but I don't like to let people down. But it's one of those things where it is important to protect your peace and say no to the things that aren't necessarily the things you want to do or spend your money on. Another thing I didn't spend money on that I was tempted to was a subscription box to a brand that helps you to grow your own vegetables. And I was very tempted by this. I thought it was really quite reasonably priced. And as someone who will need a lot of support and direction and reminders for something like that to be successful, I really liked the structure of what they offered. But I just had to remind myself that I already have a handful of hobbies, that I do notice in myself that I don't necessarily have enough time to do to the level that I would like to. I wish I had more time to spend on these. So have I really got enough time to give over to something else? I know that widens the mix, and you know, variety is the spice of life, but in this case I think I needed to just put the brakes on and slow myself down. And as well, we've been there before in lockdown. I did try to do it all on my own, and I did spend quite a bit of money getting all the stuff and set up, and even being at home during lockdown I didn't pull it off well. So I think I've taught myself a lesson there, and just had to be careful not to fall into that impulse buy, especially with something like a subscription that's going to be a long-term payment. So I'm quite happy that I didn't buy into that, despite the fact that the idea of it really appealed to me. And along the same line, there's been a lot of things of that nature that are appealing to me now, as I want to step back and slow down from the busyness of life and be, you know, more of a home bird. I want to be at home. I want to be managing my home. I want to spend more time in the kitchen and more time in the garden. And so of course I've been thinking about things like baking more from scratch, things like making my own bread. So I was very tempted to buy a bread maker. And then I thought, realistically, how often is that going to get used? When I say I was tempted to buy one, I was at the point where I had sort of 3 in contention that I really liked, and I'd read the reviews and I'd done my research, and at one point I was convinced I was going to buy one, just so I can take back a little bit of control as to what's going into my food and whatnot. But I thought, realistically, we're not in that place yet. This isn't the season of my life where I get to be that homemaker that I want to be and get to spend that time on those sorts of things. So realistically, how much will it get used? Where will I store it? Asking myself all these questions before diving in to a purchase that it might not be a wrong purchase and it might not be a bad purchase, it's just not the right purchase for now. But of course, no month is perfect, and there were things I did indeed buy. Only 2 of those things were physical items that I brought into my space, which from that side of things is brilliant, because the idea is to bring less in, so it's not adding to the clutter in my space. And so outside of our ordinary bills, which I do have another video on our budget for 2026, which you can go and watch if you want a clearer idea of how we do our bills, because I think we are pretty sensible with our bills, very not overly frugal, but probably more so than your typical person, and definitely living below our means in order to save money. Outside of those things, the first thing we had was £2.20 on car parking, and that was so we could go to a park run that is different from our local one. And that was the first one back that we did in January, we thought let's get a jump start on it and go to one that is a bit more exciting, mixes it up a little bit rather than just our first one. So nothing brought into our space, that was for using a service, good for our health, so I'm considering that a good one. On the flip side, over the course of January, we did spend £20.39 on fast food. So I think it's important to have those honest reflections, and whilst we're trying to be better all the time and we talk about eating healthier living as well as saving money, life gets busy and sometimes little things like that are just the easy way forward, and we're human and that sometimes happens. We spent £12.05 on renting a badminton court for an hour. We actually only did get one badminton slot in all month because there's been so much other stuff going on, and we've decided rather than trying to go weekly, which we used to do quite well to be honest, we are going to do that fortnightly now because we have decided to go back to horse riding on a fortnightly basis. So rather than trying to get everything in 1 week, we're going to alternate weeks that we ride and play badminton. And with that as well, we're also going to alternate weeks. We do the park run, so we'll do park run and badminton 1 week and horse riding the other week, just to balance having so much that we want to do to fit in and just to not make everything feel so rushed and hurried. We've got all these things that are important to us that we want to fit into our lives, but at the same time we don't want to stress ourselves out in the process. And so that riding lesson, we went for an hour and 3 of us went together, so myself, Tom and my mum all went together, and as I said, that's going to be on a fortnightly basis, and the hour's lesson was £37. And then the 2 actual things I bought, the first was a body protector for horse riding because I do feel like I need to protect myself a little bit. I have got a bit of a fear of coming off now that that happened last time I went riding, and it's been over a year since I last went and we're coming back into it, but if I did so I wanted to be properly safe because I have sort of put a little bit of an anxiety on myself that I'm going to fall and sort of injure something important. So I did get a body protector and that was £119, which was, compared to some of the ones I looked at, a really affordable option. So I'm happy with that. And that was a planned, well thought out purchase. But the final thing I did buy, which is the only thing I've brought to show you, was not actually a planned purchase in the sense that this was the one I was going to get. I've spoken a little bit about how I was researching different bread makers and had lots of options and reviews. This was something that had been on my wish list and was in the back of my mind if I came across one. And I did happen to come across one, and so I bought it, and that was a coat. So obviously very practical, very functional. I live sort of in a ruralish environment and like to go walking in the woods and across fields a lot. So a lot of the time it's cold, it's raining and it's muddy, and I needed a coat to go with that, and so I bought this one, which I will show you properly in a moment. But I was really happy with this purchase. I tried it on in the shop and then I went my way around the shop just thinking about it and weighing up the pros and cons in my head and the sorts of things I was thinking about. And ultimately the thing that led me to buying it, well, there were a few. One was that I've needed a proper outdoorsy coat for years and I just haven't found one of the quality that I've wanted. And I think with a lot of brands, the quality is just not there anymore. I feel like it's really lacking, and if I wanted something of this quality that it is, then I would have to have spent a lot more money, and this was £134.99 and it was on sale, and it's just not the sort of thing I would ever have gone looking for because it's a coat that is by an equestrian brand, and so it wouldn't have been in the place I was looking for. So the last coat I bought, for example, was just from a typical high street brand. It was over half the cost of this, and in the space of wearing it for a few weeks, the material had gone all bobbled, the quality was just clearly not there, and I'm really over spending my hard-earned money. As I said, when you think about trading your time for money, money becomes such a valuable resource, and I'm tired of spending my hard-earned money on things that are poor quality. And when I tried this on, honestly, it feels incredible. It's so hard wearing. It's got lovely fur lining in it, like a really soft, very gentle fleece. It's got zip up pockets. When I think about all the things I need when I'm out and about, like pockets that don't have zips, it's not working for me. The water, when it rains, it just beads up and rolls off. The hood is removable, then the fur is also removable. So with the hood being removable, it won't put too much around my shoulders, which means I can also wear it to go shooting. It's even got an inside pocket. The zip is very chunky, sort of heavy duty, well lasting. Love the colour, love the fit. It's so nice on. It really comes in at the waist and then flares out. So despite being quite an outdoorsy sort of coat, it's still got that slightly feminine vibe to it. So I just really liked it, and when I tried it on, I thought, I've been looking for a nice outdoorsy coat for so long, and so that was really my only spur of the moment kind of purchase for January. But I'm so happy with it. It's even got little elasticated cuffs to keep the warm in and the rain out and things like that. And it's such a lovely quality coat and exactly what I need as an outdoorsy person. And it's really long, it's quite long. The bottom of it almost touches the top of my wellies when I go walking. And so I'm really, really pleased with it, and it's such good quality. It's the sort of thing that I can see myself wearing for years and years and years to come. So that's that. And so with that in mind, I think my biggest reflection over January has been the way I approach this sort of idea of a no-buy. In previous years, it's always been about setting really strict rules, and those rules were fine at that time because it came with really clear goals. I want to have this many items in my space. I want to save this much money. And don't get me wrong, I've got some really clear goals now, but I'm just more about this gentler approach now, where I'm listening more to the things that are driving me in terms of slowing down, valuing resources, being clutter-free and being stress-free. And yes, I do have that savings goal as well, and that hasn't changed. But because I've automated all of that with my savings, it's not really in the forefront of my mind. As long as I leave that doing its thing, it'll just do it in the background. But I'm definitely thinking about it more as less about restriction, because if I was as strict as I was that first time I did that no-buy, regardless of the fact that I've needed something like this for a long time and wanted something like this for a long time, and I consider this, at the end of it all, a very good purchase, I would have just said no and potentially missed out on something like this that could be something that lasts me for years, that I might not find again, and in future might have ended up wasting money buying 2 or 3 coats in the same space of time in order to get that same wear, or be hunting for that same quality and not getting it and then paying for something of less quality. And so by being so restrictive and not listening to the intention last time, I think I could have actually been a barrier to myself and got in the way. And so whilst I'm trying to be sensible, I'm also being more intentional about it and viewing it as not being about restriction, but more about my peace. Anyway, I'll pop this on and show you. So just so you can see inside all this lovely fur. It's really thick. It's got little popper buttons on it, and then, as I said, it's got quite a chunky zip. The stitching is immaculate all the way through it as well. And then the actual coat itself, the inside lining, is sort of like this quilted effect, like so. You can see sneaky little inside pocket there. Even the hood has that same material inside, so it's really warm. And then, as I said, it's a lovely fit. I feel like the zip is miles away down here. Really chunky metal zip, like it's not like a zip that's going to break on you easily. Like so, and as you can see, it kind of, like, as I said, it comes in, but then it really flares out at the back. And because it's by an equestrian brand, it is actually designed to be worn on horses, which means you need to have this bit that flares out like a skirt at the back, so you can sit on a horse. And even the pockets have got that fur lining inside. So as far as a purchase, for January. I'm happy with this one and I think it's a really good one. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I'll see you in another one very soon. God bless. Take care.